Black Earth offers a full suite of humic solutions, from high-purity granules to powder, liquid, and soluble formulations, all powered by pure humulite. Trusted by growers worldwide from one of the world's rarest humulite reserves. Grow stronger with the power of Black Earth Humulite. Learn more from Mind to Market by visiting blackearth.com.
Lots always happening in the cattle markets. Let's have the beef market update with Anne Wasko, the Gateway Livestock Exchange. Anne, how are we doing?
Good. How about you today, Shaun?
I'm doing pretty good. Today's beef market update is brought to you by Ag Expert, deep in the field and deep in the data to back up your decisions on the farm or the ranch. Get started at agexpert.ca. Okay, and we're officially in the dog days of summer here in July. Dog days for the cattle markets, or not so much?
Well, I mean, first of all, you're right. This was a holiday in both countries. You know, we had our Canada Day back on Tuesday, and of course, tomorrow will be the U.S. holiday. So smaller kills, certainly. But the market has moved off of the highs from about a month ago, and this week was kind of, depending on where you're at. For example, in the south in Kansas, the market was $1 to $2 lower this week, 222 to 224. Was their live trade. And Nebraska kind of held together pretty steady with last week, 230 to 232 on the live and 368 to 370 delivered. So that was pretty steady, but again, off about $10 live off of where the highs would have been a month ago. The other news, and you talked a little bit about it on your show yesterday, Shaun, I think, but of course, in terms of USDA making the announcement of the U.S. Mexico border reopening over the screwworm issue. And it's going to be very much a very slow, phased in reopening, you know, one border crossing next week, another one the following week. So it's going to take some time between now and September to open those border points. And again, I think like we've seen through the first half of this year, it'll very much depend on how things are going along and what they find. So markets reacted a bit on announcement day, but then have really, futures have kind of bounced back after that. And it was more the psychology of the news than actual supply.
Yeah, well, and you can see like this feeder cattle supply out of Mexico is critical. It's really important for the U.S. cattle feeder. And they're trying to do what they can to get that flow restarted. But we've seen them say, hey, we're going to sort of a trickle opening. There could be a trickle close. And so it's hard to read and sort of, don't try to outguess this, I guess maybe is a way to look at it, because who knows where we go from here. Hopefully they're able to keep this under control and keep it out of the U.S.
Exactly. And just on that, on the number side here in the first half of 25, there's been just a few over 200,000 head come, whereas, in the entire year last year, it was closer to 1.2 million head. So that's how much, it's a fraction of where we would normally be at this time.
So I just have a question. I don't know why I'm putting up my hand. But those cattle that have not come into the U.S., any word, are they just being fed out in Mexico somehow? Or are they what are they doing?
That's what I understand, Shaun, is that certainly there's a portion of those will be moved into U.S. Or into Mexican feedlots and finished along that way. And some of them maybe just in backgrounding, holding type to see what happens with this border. So I think it probably is a little bit of everything that we've talked about.
Yep.
So that was kind of the news I wanted to talk about in terms of the U.S., but bring it back to local markets. We've actually seen the Alberta fat cattle market hold on considerably better than that U.S. market that's kind of $10 off the high. Alberta markets are only $1 or $2 off the high. So because of our holiday on Tuesday, we're kind of still waiting for trade. Feedlots are asking for 505 delivered. Last week it was 503. So that's kind of where we're at. We might only be steady money, but just so you kind of got an idea that the market is holding in there, that would put an average right around $3 for people that are looking for that live conversion.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Big numbers kind of just roll off your tongue now.
Yeah.
Because we haven't talked for a wee bit, I just wanted to update our listeners on how the on-feed numbers looked in June, because we weren't able to talk about this. So both countries, we're seeing smaller on-feed numbers. In Western Canada, the last report was slightly under last year, 7% smaller than the 5-year average. So that's the kind of trend we've been looking at. In the U.S., their June 1 report was 1% smaller from last year, 2% smaller than the 5-year average. Placements were down 8%, and again, largely due to this Mexican feeder import issue, especially into those southern feedlots, as you mentioned. So we'll see, what goes on, but this has been a trend we've seen all year long. The other piece that we talked about quite a bit leading into my last report here was how many, in Western Canada, how many forward sales of calves for fall delivery we've been seeing. So CanFax put together a bit of a summary in terms of all of the calves sold in June for October and November delivery. And this is, I'll just give you some rough numbers, but a 550 weight steer for delivery this fall, averaging right around 5.90, and the matching heifer around 520. So those numbers are certainly higher than what the spot market is. So certainly optimistic in terms of the fall run and pricing through this fall is what we've seen. The other thing I thought was timely, because we're finished first half of 25, and these markets, these prices have been out of this world amazing. Just quickly where we're at. So fed cattle in Alberta averaging for the first 6 months of this year, 283. That's 17% higher than last year. And just to comparison, keeping in step with the US averaged 214 US, that's 16% higher. So it was good to see both markets are moving together. That's over a 6-month average, but still. Calf prices are 550 weight average, 532 in the first half of this year, up 27%. Feeders averaging 393 at 850 pounds. That's 22% higher. And slaughter cows take the record in terms of percentage increase. They averaged 209 in the first half of this year. That's 28% higher than the first half of last year. So amazing numbers. It'll be interesting to see what the second half brings. We've set the sights quite high in terms of where we've been trading here in the first half of the year, but demand remains strong. Box beef prices continue to be strong. That's going to ease off seasonally now as we head into as you open the segment, the dog days of summer.
Yeah.
But it's been a great run.
Yeah, it's definitely grilling season now. It's definitely in full effect from, kind of between now and Labor Day. Would that be sort of that? This is kind of the zone for max grilling, right?
It is, although in terms of retail featuring and whatnot, I think things do slow off after the July 4th holiday. As you get into that heat, turns into a little bit more of a hamburger, hot dog kind of market per se, as you get into the heat of the summer. So those big, the Memorial Day and the Father's Day and the July 4th, those are the biggies. And things do tend to slow down a little bit as we go into the heat of summer.
Yeah, I'm not going to, the hot dog thing, I'm not judging. Like
I had to spit it out.
A nice summer day, a hot dog, and the mustard is key. Now, everyone's not going to agree with that. And
I have some friends that will already be arguing with me once they hear this segment. But anyway.
Yeah. Hey, it takes all kinds of cuts. They can't all be about ribeyes and T-bones, all you cowboys and cowgirls out there. So that's we gotta have respect for the hot dog as well. One of the things we talked about with Arlen Suderman from StoneX on Wednesday's show was just we just demand. You mentioned the consumer continues to come to the trough, so to speak, and be willing to pay for beef and beef products. And it kind of has sort of readjusted, probably for everybody that went through some ag economic classes. And, you talk about inelastic demand where price really does not impact demand. It feels like beef, how we would view beef has really shifted here over the past 5 years. It's incredible.
Yeah. And I think it goes to, well, first and foremost, the quality piece in terms of that high, whether we're talking choice, prime, those types of cuts. But then the other piece of it, we've seen it this summer, is the wide array of types of cuts we have that come from this animal. Yeah. And so whether we're talking, and ground beef demand has been absolutely amazing in the first half of this year. So again, we've got, different places to land in terms of where that demand piece, but overall, it's been certainly supporting these higher prices.
Yeah. Hey, Anne, thanks so much for joining us here. Have yourself, this is a weird week because we have Canada Day, we got July 4th, there's a lot happening. hey, more fireworks and more barbecuing and grilling and smoking, the better. So have yourself a great weekend.
Hear, hear. Okay, you too, Shaun.